I'm Alex Pearce, a SharePoint MVP here from the UK. I live up in sunny Birmingham. I always have to get in the fact that I'm married to my wife Ellen and I love her a lot, so I've now done that. I work for a company called BFC Networks, and we just do Office 365 for education. So we specialise in that, and we've probably got around 1.2 million users in the UK using our stuff, all on Office 365. So we've got a big user base. Those are my details. As I said, we specialise in 365, and I quite enjoy it. It's you don't have to worry about the whole architecture stuff and how many servers you need for search and all that kind of thing. So it's that little bit easier, but does come with its own issues. From an agenda point of view, we're just going to go through, talk about just briefly what Office 365 is. Anybody not seen 365 at all? Everyone's got a few hands. Well, we'll just go through it briefly. Most of it you've seen anyway from a general what SharePoint 2013 is, but I'll just show you how some of the Exchange and how Link pulls into it. We'll do it through different browsers, that kind of thing, and then we'll go through this scenario that we went through for Warwickshire County Council as it is, and some of the good, the bad, some of the really ugly, and also what 2013 beholds. So some of the things that we'll just talk about is some of the customer requirements, what they actually wanted to be able to get from it, what they currently had, some of the requirements that came out on the launch date because they realised they'd forgotten stuff, which is always quite funny. We'll talk about some of the SharePoint hybrid model and why they want to go down that road. And then we've also got Office 365 in the 2010 mode and how it actually is now if you subscribed in 2013 mode. So, at a glance, Office 365, there's 4 main products as they actually pitch it at. And depending on what you want to pay, depends on what you actually get. So we've got our SharePoint Online, we've got Link Online, we've got Exchange Online, and we can also get our Pro Plus, our actual full-fat clients available on there, and you can get that across 3 or 4 different plans and prices. I asked Microsoft in the UK to send me some slides on pricing, but they didn't get it to me. So we just take it as it is when it comes around to it. They're called SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, rather than Exchange 2010 or Exchange 2013. It's always known as Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, because it's a continuous service that is always going to be updated every 90 days. So if you're talking to somebody or you're doing any demonstrations, it's known as SharePoint Online. We started doing a demonstration for Microsoft, and they stopped us halfway through and said, can you stop saying SharePoint 2013? It's not SharePoint 2013, it's SharePoint Online. Why? I don't know, but that's what they wanted. Demo. I thought we'll get off and we'll just show off a bit of 2013 so you can see what it looks like as it comes out the box. We are going to do 2010 again later on. I know that's going down a version, but I want you to understand some of the requirements that came from the customer because we deployed it in 2010. So we have, I've logged in here as an admin user, and this is my portal landing page. I get to see all sorts. I can create users, I can add licenses and that kind of thing. So we've kind of got this left-hand navigation around dashboard, we've got setup, and we'll go through some of these. We've got create the users, we can add domains that we might use. For example, for my email, I wanted to be able to use @bfcnetworks.com. We've also got service reports, support calls, bit of service updates, current health. You can see there's issues with Exchange at the moment as it is. And we also got some planned maintenance. This is improved from what it was in the 2010. I am going to refer to it as 2010 and 2013 rather than just online. But that's improved, and if I click on the service degraded, you can see some users are currently expecting problems accessing email. So it's a better screen for you to be able to get on there, see what's actually going on. We've got within users and our groups. I'm having to use through tethering on my phone, by the way, which is not the way I really want to be able to do a cloud services demonstration. You can see our users, we can create those. We've got domains. So we've got some domains set up active on here. Which is where we can go in and we can purchase our licenses that we would then assign to the user. So we can create as many users as we want, but we don't actually pay for it until we sign it. As we just go through these different tabs across here, where we've got Outlook, we've got Calendar and People, this is all part of the Exchange platform. So here is my email, and that minimalistic look, very similar to how it kind of looks within the SharePoint. We've also got a bit of link in here as well. You can see how my presence is green, and this user here called Moodle is called green, and I can actually start a conversation with them in the browser. So we don't necessarily need link installed in any kind of way. So I can say hello. If I just jump over to this user where it's logged on, you can see that it's popped up all within the browser, and we can start having a conversation without needing the clients installed in any kind of way. I'll just close that, and we can start setting, if I click on that, we can start setting different statuses of where we actually are, should we want to. So we can see our emails, we've got our reply buttons, all very, very minimalistic, as they've tried to make it. We click on the calendar button, and it will take us to this page. We can also see into People, which is our contacts. And we've got within the Exchange Online, we've got the ability to active sync, so we can sync it to iPhone, Windows Phone, that kind of thing. So all that information you would see in your calendar and your People is the same as what you would see within those 3 tabs. The next one is Newsfeed. And this takes us onto our newsfeed. So if you've seen any of the socials presentations over the last couple of days, this is where our social feed area will come up. That's there, the number of documents that we're following and that kind of thing. And then we've got our SkyDrive Pro. So with Office 365, we get 7 gigs worth of personal storage, and we can sync this to our desktop in the same kind of way. As again, you may well have seen. So we can do co-authoring, and we can add documents here within the browser and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a bit of it. We've also got sites, which will take us to our landing page. We've got some recommended sites. You can see that I've got quite a few sites within this tenancy. And we can click on those. We can say we want to stop following them. And I've just been sent a tweet on my my Windows 8 app. Perfect. Please don't all start tweeting me. Because I know he will. He's not even listening. And then we get a link, and it goes to our site, and we'll talk on about some of the design work later on. So that kind of takes us into our SharePoints, and we can start doing our SharePoints. So we can easily move between email and SharePoints, which we'll see when we talk about 2010 in a little while, that you can't really do very well. So a bit more around the scenario, the customer that we had. So Warwickshire Council, they have around 80,000 students, 206 schools. They had a well-established SharePoint 2007 environment, which was run by another company, I guess in a private cloud as it would now be called, but in one of their data centres. Their contract was coming to an end back in August 2012. They decided that they didn't want to further those services anymore and wanted to be looking at something additional. So they came to us, did a proof of concept, which we'll talk about slightly a bit more in a moment. But they wanted to use Office 365, but they wanted about 80% functionality for about 20% of the cost. They believe that the last 20%, that really stuff that takes so much more longer, is going to cost them 80% more, and normally it does. So they wanted something quite simple that can then be added on later on as more funding kind of comes in, especially after all the government cuts that have been made in education. So we're currently in a phase 1, coming into phase 2 environment. So they wanted Exchange, they wanted Link, they wanted SharePoint. And they're getting a later phase that we're going to add parents. So parents can start accessing this information, which will take it up to 150,000 users, all within one single tenancy. They've got single sign-on, which is done through to Active Directory, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. They have one single Active Directory, which is available to all the primary schools. Secondaries mainly have got their own, but there's a single sign-on that does everything for them. Said 190 schools are currently, 189 actually to be there. Everyone's going to have a My Site, and it's all, as I said, it's mentioned through a single tenancy. So the cost, Office 365 for education is free. So if you've got an E2 plan, it's equivalent to an E2, A2 as it's called. In education, I should have put A2, I'm supposed to say A2, not E2, is free. So it's great that schools can log on, they get 25 gig mailbox, they can get My Site, they can get Link, and they can get SharePoint Standard rather than the enterprise stuff for free. So we've got 1.2 million users because it's free. They can just sign up for it. So we're absolutely delighted. Warwickshire decided that because they wanted to add stuff on top of it, that they were going to start charging extra cost per user. And this is around £1.50 per user, but not including reception kids. It's not that they don't want the reception aides using it, they just don't think it's fair to charge them because they don't think that 5-year-olds are going to use the computers as much as maybe as 11-year-olds or 16-year-olds would actually do. But everybody still gets an Exchange mailbox, which you'll see in a slide later on. So the average cost per school per year to be able to use the 365, get training from the learning staff that are part of the council and all that kind of thing is around £600. Now, one of the good things is that this is bringing revenue into the council when cuts are being made. And this was one of the things that they wanted to be able to try and do, was that, yes, it's a free service, we are adding more on top of it, so we would like to charge you for it. So the council are not having more cuts and losing more money, they're actually making some money in that kind of way, which really kind of helped them to keep some of their staff, their training and learning advisors. Go ahead.
Who actually pays the £1.50? Is that
It's, no, it's the schools. It comes out the school budget. Will pay for it.
Then how is that money into the council? Because obviously the council funds the school. It's just $1 then.
I know I really don't know how the whole payment mechanism works, but I know that they've got something that say I can understand what you're saying around the why is it that a council gives the money to the school and then they just take it straight back from them. But there must be some way that they do it. But it's quite common, I think, because
schools have a budget and then they can spend it on what they want. So if they don't give it to the council, they can put something else.
A council-wide system.
Yeah, but the school's budget would be the same amount. So the schools can either spend that £600 on something else or from the council.
Yeah.
But not because the council's deployed it. School's part of that council. That school.
I think the funding comes in different ways. This is going to the IT services part of the council rather than the money coming directly from the council. I can find out a bit more about it later on for you. But on average, it's about £600 that they're paying for it. So the proof of concept that was done, we were asked to go in and do a proof of concept against a Google compete. So Google Apps is free, probably which is why Office 365 for Education is free. So there's not this big PR marketing, one's going to cost a lot more than the other. And we actually went up against a WordPress Google Apps kind of joint. And the main thing that came down to is that the council wanted to know where their data was. When you ask the question to Google, where's your data, they go somewhere in a data center, somewhere in this world. They can't give you an actual, it's here. Wherefore Microsoft with Office 365 can tell you it's in Amsterdam and Veldover in Dublin, or vice versa, depending on how it is. So they like that, but based on the feedback from the schools as well, they preferred some of the Microsoft tools because it was familiar, like Word to Excel. You've got the Office web app, so they get familiarity within there. In a good way, should have clicked. Microsoft wins. Woohoo! So that's coming a common thing. We're seeing more councils, certainly as a customer, we're seeing more councils now moving away from Google and wanting to go more to Office 365. And Office 365 is now IL2 G Cloud approved. The government have got something called G Cloud, slightly inappropriate, I think, because it can be considered as Google Cloud. But G Cloud is a framework that's been set up by the government to ensure cloud services is secure enough for data that the council hold. And Office 365 has got that within the UK. It's IL2, which means sensitive information go up on there as well. So when we started talking to them, we wanted to talk about it as 4 different work streams, really. And we always talk about it in four different work streams, mainly because of the way the products actually are. We've actually got, I class it as 4 different products. We've got the identity system, which then allows us to get into the individual. So when I'm logged into Windows Azure Active Directory, as it's now called, I'm automatically logged into each of those. And that's why you saw when we were in there that I was in Exchange, but some of my link went on and I didn't have to re-authenticate to get back into SharePoint. So we kind of looked at identity, then we looked at how we're going to do email, then we're going to do how to do SharePoint. Because sometimes you only want to do just email, or maybe just want to do email and link. You don't have to necessarily just do SharePoint. So if you're looking at them in 4 different ways, we get identity working. As soon as we've got that going, perfect. And then we can go into the different areas. So around the identity work streams, we wanted to use ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services, which allowed us to be able to do single sign-on to the desktop that the kids log on to. So a 7-year-old can log on to the computer at their school, and they can also get to their email with the same username and the same password. We don't want to be giving pupils multiple usernames and passwords. Their Active Directory is also part of the Sugarworth solution that they wanted, which is quite a common single sign-on across education. It uses SIF, so the SIF interoperability framework, which is around about pulling data out of the school MIS systems, like where you might pay as your parent, you probably fill in a piece of paper, you send it to them, they put it into this database. So it pulls all this data, extracts it all, creates all the usernames, so when a pupil can log on, they go all the way through. Just to explain briefly what ADFS and DirSync as it is. DirSync is directory synchronization. This kind of gives us our users in Office 365. So we've got our local Active Directory here. We've got our Windows Azure AD in the clouds. And this tool basically just does a one copy over of all the attributes. Doesn't enable them, doesn't set passwords or anything like that. It just enables it for you. What Warwickshire, and then it obviously lets us in there. What DirSync provides for us is a one-way sync. And copies, as I said, just the attributes over. And then we have to activate the user and give it a license, and the password is stored in the cloud. Where ADFS comes in useful is that it's almost a mechanism. When we try and log into here, it passes us through to a local server on our network, which then can do the authentication with our Active Directory. So we basically go through the process of logging on over here, and ADFS logs us in, and I'm going to show you this in a second just so you can see it. So what ADFS brings us in, so as I said, it's called Active Directory Federation Services. It requires DirSync, and it activates users. You still have to activate them manually. We can do that through PowerShell should we wish, and then we can get all sorts of usernames as we go through. So I want to show you that very briefly on how that works. What I've done is I've prepared it's just another customer because they've got a slightly better deployment list. So I've put in my username as it is on the portal screen here, and I'm just going to put in the final.co.uk. As I tab away, it's kind of, you can see it's thinking and it's redirecting me, and it's now redirecting me to my ADFS servers which are on premise at this customer. And now I've got a different logon box, and I can type in my username, password, he says. And it's now passing all the token stuff and all the stuff that the IT pros can worry about, and it's now logged me into my Office 365. So I've just logged on with an Active Directory account, which is within a school, and taken this on. The way Warwickshire want to be able to do that is that you select your school that you want, you click go, and it just comes up with a pop-on box. That's how they wanted to do it. Why, I'm not 100% sure, because you could have a nice little form-based logon that you've just seen, which is why I wanted to show you it. But that's what they want to do. And I don't actually have a username on their Active Directory, but that's how they do it. We're going to talk about this page in a minute. But one of the requirements that they wanted, which I thought was quite strange, is that surely you would want a landing page that automatically forwards you off to your school. They didn't want that. I don't know why. They just wanted to be able to create a simple HTML page. You select the school that you want, and it takes you to the URL for your school. I can't still quite understand why they wouldn't want to make it easier for the pupils to be able to log in automatically, take one. But if that's their requirement, that's their requirement. Now, one of the things that you saw is that we went to the portal, we put in the .uk as it was, and it started doing this to redirect. And maybe we don't want to do that. And there are ways of being able to get around that. So we can put in this is your internal ADFS URL, and this is where we want it to be able to go to, which is great. This is how we do it, but that's a ridiculously long URL, as you can probably tell. You can't exactly turn around to people and say, can you just put this URL in, please? And then they'll go through. No chance are they going to be able to type all that. But that's where we can start using links. That's where some of that drop-down list of all the schools, and they go off into that kind of things. That's some useful information if you don't want it. So you can just put a shortcut on everybody's desktop, put it through so it's that with the URL, and you can put / sites if you want to go to a different site collection and that kind of thing from there. So they decided to call it WeLearn 365. I think they like the 365 name. It's going to be on Office 365. They're going to be using that as the core service, as it actually is. So they gave it WeLearn. I believe that WeLearn is actually used quite frequently across the schools and the council anyway, and they wanted to give it a buzz name around there. They didn't really want to call it SharePoint Online. They didn't really want to call it Office 365. So they came up with something a bit more, I guess, fun, and they came up with a nice logo, as you can see here, and you've just seen the landing page. That takes you onto there. So we talked about identity. We got that going. We know that users can now authenticate to get into it. So then we provisioned around 80,000 users. It's about 79,863, I think it is. And then we did email. And everyone was going to get an email mailbox, whether they were paying for it or not, because this is just a free service that the council were already offering. So they migrated the content over, and everyone was automatically provisioned with an email service. So that £1.50 was only for SharePoint Online, rather than the whole 365 environment. I'm not sure how Link comes into that price plan, but they haven't quite finished how they want to be able to implement in that and how they're going to use that. So what we did was we sat down with them and we showed them what it looks like out the box. This is what SharePoint 2010 looks out the box. And I'm going to show you this in a demo because it's just slightly better and breaks up the presentation slightly. I'll do with my water. So this is what the 2010 was going to potentially look like for every single student as they logged in. And we've always known that looks a bit boring. The same image that we had in 2007, and it's just boring. So as you've seen in some of the 2013 stuff, we had an extra navigation across the top here to be able to get to our email. How do we get to our email from here? Well, we can't get back from the email either. If anything, I have to go to, if I put in mail.office365.com, that's then going to take me to my email. What good's that? Why is it going to take? Why should I have to? Why can't I have that? And I think that's why they've added that extra navigation in 2013 to make that functionality. We've got some shared document. You've seen all this before, and it's not education friendly. They don't believe that. So we implemented a template, and just jumping back into the slides. And what they decided is that they wanted a set of subsites pre-created for each school. The users set up based on security groups that were set up within Office 365 for education. Within the 365 and Windows Azure AD, as well as other features that they actually wanted created as part of the actual template as we go along. And what we came out was this. And you're probably thinking, that looks absolutely hideous. And that's some of the idea. I personally, and I'll go on record, he does know this, I hate this green look and feel. It's a bit dull. Where would you ever see that anywhere in any kind of marketing material? Looking at the logos there, none of them have got that colour scheme whatsoever. And it's just boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a demo, show you what each of these different tabs, what they do. You can see that we've added the My Mail, which will take us to our email from SharePoint, and also how we change some of the design work. And we've got some examples of what some of the schools have done as well. one load for me. So here it is. You can see there's the rounded corners that are there, and we've done that through some clever JavaScript stuff. So it's always round, no matter what browser that you're using it in. You'll see a screenshot later on of it being used on an iPad. And it's set to be the same width as an iPad. So then it doesn't matter what the learners are using, they always get the same wherever they go. And then all this is not being stretched, or let's try and move the content everywhere. Like when a teacher sets up a learning resource or they set up a page, it's always the same. So they've got a logo, as you can see here. They've got 3 main colours. They've got a welcome logo on the page. If you just go that a little bit further down, we've got latest news, which comes from our navigation. We've got some central news that's pulled from another site collection. So this kind of goes through and pulls that from the root site collection it actually is. And you can probably see here that we go to /news, /list, and it pulls that information from there. So the council have the ability to push general information out. We've also got some image-based navigation that takes them to some general learning resources that they felt that as part of the template should be there. So schools can add more to it should they want to, as well as some images that are there. Cool, it's Bez's birthday tomorrow. I haven't spoken to her since I left school. Good old Facebook. We wanted to got an error there, but we've got an admin page where it's easy for them to be able to go through. Tells them a bit more about the colours, different groups that they can easily start doing, and we've got a colour picker which will help them, which we'll demonstrate a little bit later on. Going through across the navigation here, we talked about on the front page that it pulled news, and this is our news site. Come on, phone, don't let me down now. Should have gone with 4G. And tell you what we'll also do in preparation is we'll open up some of the other tabs while we're talking. He says. So our news site is actually the blog template. And we couldn't see the point in re-engineering something that we wanted to do the same stuff with. They wanted dates, they wanted title, they wanted to be able to put content in, they wanted to be able to categorise it, they wanted to be able to see an archive. Well, that's all the stuff that the blog stuff. So all we've done is we've kind of taken out the word blog. So normally when you create it, it says blog tools. It says manage a blog host. So we've taken all that out and we've got it all there for them. And it's just kind of being clever and using SharePoint, but not necessarily for what it says it is. Doesn't matter if it says blog or not. Part of the template, they wanted this news item, again, changeable for the school, and 3 example posts, just to be able to show them what's there really. They can delete them. They are completely false. They sent them to me. But it's just the idea is to give a bit of a demonstration of this is the possibilities of it. Jumping into the staff area, let me click on which one should we do? That parents on that one and governors on that one, so those 2 can think when we talk about staff. The staff page, we've developed a template that we use anyway, and this one hasn't changed too much. Whenever a document is uploaded, it's categorised, and that's one of the things that we wanted to be able to do. So we have category options that appear as we upload our documents. And again, they can change these icons that are set there. The governor portal is interesting. One of the learning advisors there was a governor, and he said, "This is how I want it." And we'd done this wonderful template that we thought should be a governor portal, and he completely changed his mind. Said, "No, we're going to have it like this." And he wanted it very simple. That there's a calendar, there's web links that go off, and there's also governor documents. Our personal template adds a bit more around adding minutes and agenda items and that kind of thing, and helps towards that. He didn't feel that was relevant. What we're seeing with some of the governors who use this now is that previously they would spend about the first hour of their governor's meeting reading documents. Is anybody a governor here for a school? No. So they almost spend about an hour reading the documentation that's required to actually do the meeting, because they're not normally sent out in the post. Wherefore now they can come on here, use the Office web apps and see all the document. So when they come in, they're not spending 2 hours in a meeting 1 hour reading, 1 hour discussing, they're getting it all done within the first hour. And that's happy governors and happy schools. The parents, we've got 3 document libraries, as you can see down this right-hand side. They wanted to split up policies and e-safety separately. They felt that it was more important that parents would log on and see more information about e-safety. So log on, there's e-safety, and then here's the rest of your policies, and then underneath you've got things like newsletters and that kind of thing, as well as just general parent announcements and web links. Going into pupils is different. They wanted to be able to categorise this into the different year groups as it is. And you'll see in a minute when we go through some screenshots of how some other schools have done it, that they've actually got, some have broken it down to key stage or maybe year 1 and 2 and that kind of thing. So what we did is that these sites don't actually exist. We didn't want them created. The idea is that they go to this template site and they create the way that they want to be able to use it. This is what the council started off at: discussion board, web links and images, but there's no images in there. So the idea is that they can upload them, they can create it, and then they can use the Save Us site as a template and then go away and create all the classes that they want to be able to create. So giving the school the ability to create it the way that they want to teach, the way that they want to learn, the teachers how they want to be able to use it, rather than going, here it is, use it, we're telling you how to use it. And the final one is resources. And we have a link to other services that are part of the We Learn 365. So part of that £1.50 that they do pay towards other educational resources. And the idea of that is that obviously you buy it as a council, you're going to get a lot cheaper than buying it as 200 schools separately. What we have here, as you can see, we've got the images in here. So one of the things I wanted to show you, and it's is that how we actually change the design on here, and I'm going to change it to one of my favourite designs, I have to admit. So we'll just go back to the root site, and we go to view all our content. And one of the things that we've got is we've got a colour list, and this is one of the things that the schools really like. So what we do is I've got a set of colours. I'll put my colours in my notepad. I hope you like this design, by the way. This is actually the hex codes. What we've done for the 2013, they'll have a colour wheel, so they can select the colour wheel that they want. We'll save that one. So that's going to go away and do our colours for us. We're also going to jump back on a page. We're going to go to design and we're going to upload a background. So I've got my background saved here. You may have spotted the name of what we're going to make it look like. I'm going to add my documents. Hopefully this won't take long on my phone. Go on. Now if we do a refresh. And we'll take out our logo if we don't like that. Do a proper refresh. You can see hopefully that the design is completely different now to what it was with those horrible greeny looking colours, and makes it a bit more fun for the educators, the kids, and logging on. And there's some teachers that change this on every other day, or they might do it on a sporting event, the sports day, or it's snowing, let's put something up where it's snowing kind of thing. So that's the idea of making it so dull, was because it forces them almost to make it a bit more fun. So just to show you what some of the schools, and I have got quite a few images, and if I feel like it's a few too many, then I'll leave it. But you can see how the colours have changed here, and where it's got some of the news, and very simple there. This one again, they've changed those images where you can change it to be able to get to their My Site, to their My Mail, but completely remove the front page that's there. This is on an iPad, as I talked about how the page kind of fitted in into the iPad screen. So it doesn't matter where I go. This looks the same on my full HD monitor, but it also looks the same on my iPad, so they get the same. Just some of the designs. This is where a year 2 site, for example, you click on that year 2, then you go into this is my content for autumn, spring, term, and that kind of thing. And this is giving these are the teachers, this is what they've done rather than anything else. And you see how we changed those images. They've broken it again down into different levels that are within the school, so you can see that they've actually been using reception pupils. Year 3 class. Some of them don't use year 1, they call it OWL, they call it Dorden. That was boring, getting a bit too samey now. You see we're breaking it down. This is where it's like year 1 class, for example. That's there, and this may be more of a teaching aid more than anything else. And then we also have it within the My Sites as well. So the kids can go up and they can start adding their own images that they want to be able to use, their own colour schemes as it is. And obviously we want to make it friendly for everybody. I personally quite like that one. And fireworks for Bonfire Night, I think it was. So how did we get to get to that template? So we have our templates. We've done something, but we wanted to work with them to customise it. At the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be implementing it out there. So we sat down, we had 3 separate sessions where we kind of ripped it apart, make changes, went back and did it again, with their teaching advisors who go into the schools and help the teachers to kind of implement it and train those. We agreed a final structure with lists, templates, how they were going to look, also around that horrible green colour, and then we replicated it again and again until we got it implemented for all the schools. So, hybrid model. So one of the reasons that we're talking about hybrid is that Office 365 doesn't have support for API, so we can't pull information from things like timetables and that kind of thing because that's presented through an API, so we can't pull that through. So we need to look at doing something a bit more on-premise, and that's something that we're going to be working on over the next year, and to make it so as parents come on as part of that phase 2, that they can log on, they can see what the pupil information is around is their child actually at school. If you're 13, if you actually turned up at school that day, at least you'd be able to log on and you'll be able to see it. And then there's also around other things like attendance, get your report, so they're going in the bag and they get ripped up, and my parents telling me off that I'd never gave them the report after 2 weeks. They can get it just straight away online. One of the requirements I mentioned earlier on, that they realised there's a requirement on the day of the launch, that the old system had a reset password ability built into their solution. They completely forgotten this, so all the kids came back after September, all the teachers came back, all forgotten their passwords, and their help desk went through the roof with a number of calls because they'd forgotten that they needed a reset ability. And that's where, again, because we already had that SharePoint servers on-premise set up, we could add the red parts to be able to reset it, and now the right people can log on, reset passwords for the pupils and for the teachers. For the Office 365 SharePoint admin side of things, so what happens is that we have a site collection. Each school has a site collection, so they're in their own individual silo, they've got their own permissions. In 2010, this has to be done manually. You have to create each single one manually. So I employed my mother for 2 weeks, and she sat there and created every single one manually, and sat there, went create, put in the details, put the URL in, put the name in. She loved me by the end of that process. And it's all PowerShell about, you can do it all with PowerShell now in 2013. So 50 gig limit, we've set it to, the final limit is 100 gig, but we've set it to 50 gig, because then we can understand how the schools are using it, and then we can add it as and when it's right. So we can kind of advise them and help them as we go along. Go ahead.
I noticed that you had deployed your custom branding onto the My Sites. How did you actually deploy that onto?
So the question was, how do we deploy the custom branding? And we'll come on to that in a few minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's cool. Cheers. So as I said, there's one central site collection, which is the root one, which is information passed out across the whole and is relevant to everybody. There's a governors area, so they can get general government information for the council. Each school has a site collection, and there's 189 of them altogether, so 190 altogether. And this is just one of the screenshots. There's about 8 pages worth of just this. Just constant. You have to click on new site collection and create them and get on there. It was a pain. But I got a good price. I have to say, I got a good price for my mother creating those. So coming on to the Sandbox Solutions, which is how we uploaded our custom code, our web template. So this is the staff template, the pupil template, and that kind of thing. We uploaded into Sandbox Solutions. This had to be done manually as well. There's no way of being able to, or nothing out of the box. You can write some custom script, but at the time when we implemented this about a year ago, we had to sit there manually. So we uploaded one which did the front page, then we uploaded another one which would add the other 8 Sandbox Solutions. Then we had to activate every single one of those per site collection manually. So if the math is already on the screen, 9 Sandbox Solutions that have to be activated for every single school equals 1,700 activations. My mother loved me so much that she did every single one for me. And it's, okay, it's frustrating and they haven't fixed that in 2013, but effectively it's a pain point. It's a really annoying point that if you want to use something like that, we're working on the ability so we can script it all and that kind of thing. So with some of our deployments we're doing now, we just say this is the tenancy and it goes off and it builds it all for us. It's so annoying, so annoying. So as I said, what helps from a 2013 point of view is that PowerShell is there. It's only very little PowerShell, and it's more to do with creating the site collections and managing the resources that they have. And the quotas, we can't create sites, we can't create sub-sites, we can't create lists, we can't upload items, we can't do anything like that. So if you do hear that there's rumblings that there's PowerShell for Office 365 and SharePoint, there is, but it's not what people are normally used to. It's just this ability of being able to manage and create these sites collections as it is. But what we can do, spelling mistake, we can actually start managing quota limits. We can see what quota that people are using. The only way to see what's the limit you have in 2010 is opening up SharePoint Designer, and it tells you there, this is how much you've used of your quota. What good's that? So we can use some of that PowerShell to go off, query the number of gig that they used, and then kind of work with the school to understand why they're putting so much. Are they using loads of videos? Do we need to look at a video solution and that kind of thing? So what's next? We've got to get upgraded to 2013. When? It's a good question. Between now and December. Some of the 365 pain point at the moment from the upgrade point of view is that we don't really know. You're given 4 weeks notice, then you're given a week's notice, then you're going to get then you get told you're going to be upgraded in the next 10 days and it will take 24 hours, which is wonderful when you really don't know how that is, and especially if it's coming around to exam period time. The last thing we want now is that a portal goes down that is used by the kids during exam time. We work with third-party applications. So on that resources page, you had a few icons across here, and we're working with them to make it so they can single sign on with the Windows Azure OAuth authentication type, allowing them to have single sign-on between the different products. So we talked about how it's We Learn 365, and it's not just Office 365, it's everything else. This is exactly what they wanted. They want to add additional services, and they're using, it was officially relaunched last week, came out of beta as it was, but OAuth is this authentication type, and we can single sign on to more to these. And we've got examples of Moodle. I've seen it. It's there's a Microsoft site called Partners in Learning, which is a teaching social network, where you click on it and it takes you straight in through those the same authentication type as using in Office 365. So potentially, we're now logging onto our desktop and logging into potentially all sorts of different types of websites. We've got the upgrade from My Site to SkyDrive, and they want to do some more stuff around e-portfolio systems and how I learn and blogging and that kind of thing within that SkyDrive area. Other councils nearby have taken it up. They really like what's happened with Relearn 365, so they're looking at how they can use their teaching advisors and maybe extend that, so it's becoming a good income for the council. And then also the collaboration with overseas schools. Schools do have this partnership where the pupils will go over to France and have a school, and they obviously do vice versa, so they want to be able to do link calls, and that's why link right here at the bottom is on there. Kind of how do we get students collaborating with each other in different schools, different languages, potentially all the way around the world. And as Skype is going to be come more integrated with Link Online as well, you've got this initiative called Skype, I forgot what it's called now, Skype Teachers, Skype School, something like that, which is the ability to be able to find classrooms, and maybe you're all talking about science, that kids can all sit there and there'll be a lecturer, a well-known lecturer maybe in America, but you'll have classes all the way around the world. And that's the kind of thing that they want to be able to do with Link and with SharePoint and Office 365. So that was my last slide, and